All right, thanks so much for being with us here on Atlanta News First Plus. I'm Joy Lim Nakrin. I'm joined by a special guest joining us today. We have attorney Holly Waltman. Thanks so much for being with us. So obviously we have you here, Holly, to discuss some of the top legal stories that we're following. And there is this breaking news that we are following. You may have seen as we brought you the press conference a short time ago from the United States Attorney General Merrick Garland, speaking from the Department of Justice in our nation's capital, announcing that a special counsel, David Weiss, has now been appointed to the Hunter Biden case. And I want to break down a little bit why this was. Holly, why do you think a special counsel was brought in now to discuss, focus on this case?
Yeah, Joy, that's exactly right. So the big thing that is important to think about in this situation, so much work goes in on both the government side as well as the defense counsel side in trying to come up with negotiated recommendations and resolutions for a case like this that is short of trial. What we've seen unfold is that the judge in this case, the third party involved, rejected the negotiations that were agreed to by both sides. And in doing so, it really puts the government on the defense, for lack of better words, to say, hey, we need to readjust how we are approaching this case. And if we are going to stick to certain charges that we want this individual to plead guilty to, we might need to bring in someone neutral, new to this case, to put a fresh set of eyes on it in order to get a resolution that might be accepted by this judge.
Sure. And let's remember that last month, Hunter Biden's plea deal over tax evasion basically fell apart before this U.S. District Court Judge Mary Ellen Noriega, who was appointed by the former President Donald Trump, raised a lot of concerns about the specifics. But I want to ask you, Holly, also if you think that there might potentially be a political element to this, because at the same time we're seeing the Trump investigation, plural investigations, underway, and there have been some accusations from Mr. Trump's camp that this is basically a political witch hunt. So do you think that maybe this could be an attempt by the Justice Department in some way to kind of appear more bipartisan?
Well, Joy, I think that's a really great point. We always like to look at the justice system and the judicial branch of our government as bipartisan or not really declared to be Republican or Democrat in nature. I think that is low-hanging fruit. Of course, the argument can be made that this is political and that's why the deal fell through. But I would like to refocus us and our viewers on the fact that normal individuals that are not the son of the president or elected officials that are relatives or friends and family members, deals fall apart for them every day in every county of every jurisdiction that I work in and that other attorneys work in. So this is not an uncommon thing to see happen. I think that it cannot be argued that he was treated the same as someone who wouldn't have had his connections, and I believe that is truly the catalyst for why this deal fell apart.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you breaking this down. Is there anything else you want to point out about this Hunter Biden case or this move by Merrick Garland to now announce a special counsel appointed to the Hunter Biden case?
Well, I think it is the right move for Merrick Garland to get a clean set of eyes and a new, fresh set of investigation on this case, because it is obviously at the top of the news and it is breaking news. So I do think that it is the appropriate move to get someone new on this case to evaluate it and hopefully come up with a resolution that serves justice and is fair to all parties.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I want to ask you then about, of course, the major legal and political story that we've been following here in Georgia and all across the nation, which is the investigation into the former president, Donald Trump, because at any day now, any moment now, really, we could see an indictment right here in Fulton County, Georgia. I should point out that in our nation's capital, Mr. Trump's team did appear for their first federal hearing today with regards to the federal investigation into alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 election. And obviously we know that Mr. Trump is facing 4 federal counts there out of D.C. in federal court there, 3 conspiracy related counts, and one of them is an obstruction type count. But in that 45-page set of indictments, we see, a whole section on Georgia and the activities that took place in Georgia that are alleged to have been kind of the legal basis or factual basis for these indictments. So, I've been looking at that, Holly, to see if maybe that could give us some insight into what we could expect here in Georgia, in Fulton County. What do you have in mind as we're kind of waiting for the potential for these indictments to drop in Fulton County?
Yeah, Joy, so the thing that is most notable about the federal indictments that Donald Trump is facing versus what potential indictment or indictments could be coming down, charges within an indictment rather, here in Fulton County, I think that the best way to digest this and understand it is that if one act occurs, it is not mutually exclusive from being prosecuted somewhere else. If there are multiple statutes, laws, and violations that occur from one act, you can be and should be prosecuted under two different venues of law. This one being the federal government indictment, and then obviously a Fulton County indictment that might be upcoming in the next week or two. The thing that is going to be notably different about the Georgia indictment, of course, we are ready, and everything here in Atlanta points to this courthouse being prepared for news to be breaking at any moment about this case. So it is a preview of what I believe the elected district attorney of Fulton County could bring, but I don't believe that it is going to be exclusive, just in line with what we see him being charged with on the federal side.
Okay, so what do you think in terms of potential charges? We've been talking about it with different analysts over the last few days. What potential charges could we see or indictments could we see here in Georgia, in your opinion?
Yeah, so one of the biggest hints that I have seen being here and practicing local is that the courthouse is completely shut down except for official business. There are huge barricades that are blocking all of the streets, all four corners of it. I know we're expected to hear that there are going to be more road closures in the coming days and, of course, next week. I think that this elected district attorney is doing everything in her power to not let someone who potentially will be accused of interfering with a official proceeding interfere with the special grand jury meeting and convening. We're going to see a range of RICO charges with underlying offenses of interfering with elections and, of course, the voting machines that we heard about with the Dominion machines that were misappropriated potentially or allegedly in this case. So we definitely have hints at what we're going to see by way of an indictment here in Fulton County, but we will know soon, I believe.
Absolutely, and you mentioned the road closure, so I just wanted to pull up this map because it is something that affects anybody who lives and works around Atlanta. That you should just avoid the Fulton County courthouse area. You can see that Pryor Street Northwest is shut down. We put that down on the map. Closed to traffic, I should say. Here's a look at some of the barricades that you were talking about around the exterior of the courthouse. And courthouse employees, where it is possible, are being told to work from home or have been told to work from home by District Attorney Fani Willis. Very interesting at the same time, Holly, that Fani Willis has announced a campaign for re-election as well. I gotta wonder whether that's something that the Trump camp may focus on as they, as they're faced with the potential for these criminal indictments. And we saw that earlier this week when Mr. Trump was at a rally in New Hampshire. He did take aim at Fani Willis, our Fulton County District Attorney, and accused her of being racist against white people and accused her of having some sort of affair with a YSL member. I'm not sure if he was alluding to Young Thug himself, but so I wonder if this announcement of a campaign for re-election might be something else. What do you think?
It's hard to say exactly what is in the mind of Donald Trump when he's making these statements. I know as an individual and as a professional that stands next to people accused of very serious felony offenses, one of my very first things that comes out of my mouth is you have the right to remain silent, and you should. Taking shots prematurely like this at Fani Willis or anyone in her office, who, mind you, and is a good reminder to everyone out there, is the sole discretion decision-making body in what will happen to former President Donald Trump, should he be true-billed by this grand jury. It's definitely not advisable. I'm not sure that it's something that his counsel on any level can control. But of course, I do know secretively that they wish they could, and it's not something that I would recommend or think is going to be in his best interest in the long run.
Yeah, that makes sense. What else do you think that we should kind of expect out of Fulton County, Georgia, with regards to these potential indictments?
Well, one of the things that I think is notably different about these proceedings that thus far is that they've received so much attention. And I think one thing that is very important to remember is that getting a true bill or getting the green light from a grand jury, special or otherwise regular, is really only a testament to probable cause that a crime has occurred within the jurisdiction of Fulton County. So we are super early in the proceedings, despite the fact that this has been top of mind and really just breaking news and unexpected news day after day and hour after hour. We're super early in this proceeding. We have quite a long way to go. Getting someone or getting a group of people together indicted under a racketeering indictment only requires probable cause. Proving someone guilty beyond a reasonable doubt is a completely different animal, and it's a completely different thing to consider. So we are super early in this, and we have not really heard and seen what is the state's evidence that they believe proves that these crimes occurred.
Yeah, and you make a great point. The bar is relatively much lower to have an indictment, as opposed to a conviction. But I want to ask you, about that, because out of federal court related to, these alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 election, we only saw 4 counts, right? But we do know that the rate of success of prosecutions in federal court is a lot higher than in state court. That, in terms of actually turning those indictments into convictions. So I want to ask you: do you think in state court we're going to see more counts? Are we going to see numerous? I mean, is it going to be a lot more than what we saw in federal court, where we just saw 4?
So one of the things that I've learned from my 10 plus years of working with this office as a defense attorney is that I think that we will in fact see more charges. We will see more counts. I even think we're going to see co-defendants named in this indictment, okay? That's how you get the basis for RICO, that people worked together to achieve some sort of criminal enterprise or activity or outcome. I do believe that Georgia law supports this office to charge in what's called the alternative, meaning if there are multiple ways that they believe that these crimes might have occurred or that they might have evidence to support, those are things that they can put into counts of this indictment and ask the trier of fact, which would be a judge or a jury, depending on which way the case progresses, to determine if there is in fact proof beyond reasonable doubt that these crimes happened.
Any final thoughts, Holly, before we let you go?
I think we're going to be here for a long time talking about these things. One thing that we do know about former President Donald Trump is that he is not going to go down without a fight. I do not think that this will be easily resolved, quickly resolved, or quietly resolved. So more will definitely be coming.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with you there. Thank you so much. And I just want to remind our viewers that we have an extensive section on our website, atlantanewsfirst.com. We have an entire Trump tab, and we encourage you to check it out if you want to just follow the latest on all of these investigations. Again, 3 different cases now, 3 different indictments against the former president, and potentially a 4th one right here out of Georgia. We're going to follow the latest. Thank you so much.